All right. Excuse me. Hello, everyone. Did I stream last week? I think so. Yeah. So, hey, welcome back from last week. This week, I want to kind of start a new series on the Shift CLI tool. I've actually had this tool out there for a while. It's kind of like an artisan command, basically, that you can install, ideally globally. But historically, you kind of installed it in your project. I think it was called the Shift console. And I probably built that like 2 or 3 years ago, and I just kind of never did anything with it, which eventually became the Shift workbench, which is like laravelshft.com/workbench. You can see this is a cloud-based thing as well as a desktop application, which I'm probably going to sunset the desktop app. It's not really worth the additional maintenance, and I think it just makes sense. Again, the whole point of the desktop app was kind of to be kind of ready to use for convenient, I guess you could say, for developers, and convenient being, lives on your local machine. You don't have to go out to a website. You don't have to, authenticate with GitHub and all that kind of stuff. So, good idea, but I don't think an Electron app is the best medium. First of all, you still have to download it and do all these things. And then second of all, from my perspective, the maintenance of a kind of brand new tech stack just isn't really worth it. So going back to the roots is the Shift CLI. And I also, if you take a look at Laracasts, this kind of got brought back to life because I went into their Creator Series. All my streaming stuff is in the way, but basically if you go down to their Creator Series, you'll see kind of this automated Laravel upgrade bit. So I recorded this probably at the end of last year, so they're just now kind of releasing it. Couple episodes in now, but I think there's a total of 12 episodes, so about a third of the way through. But basically, I build this in that series, or at least the foundation of it. I kind of work my way up, building all these little pieces of automation. So this is usable, but there's a couple things. One, there's no documentation, and two, I didn't really refactor it after that series. So let's get into the code. That's kind of the backstory. So I think now it makes more sense to get into actual coding, because that's what you're here for. So I have the application, and this is a Laravel 0 application. So it's going to look a lot like Laravel. We'll just install that Copilot update later. So it's going to look a lot like a Laravel application. And the way it's structured is very similar to the way I structure Shift. Again, in the Creator Series, I'm kind of teaching you how to build your own automation and tools you can use not only on the system, but how you can write things yourself. And I think that, it's pretty good. It's pretty good corollary with the way Shift is kind of built. But using a Laravel 0 application, it kind of gives you the feel of a Laravel app. And then the Shift code base kind of has a feel of the Laravel app as well, but I don't necessarily use Laravel 0 for that. So there's really the way this works. We'll do a demo here in a second, but the important pieces of this are kind of twofold. There's this run command. So the goal of this is that you would basically say Shift and then name your tasks that you want to run. So for example, I kind of have this manifest of the different tasks, and they would be things like check lint, debug calls, format code, order your model. These were the things that I built in the Creator Series. Eventually, I want to build a lot more of these to kind of mimic what the workbench is doing, and therefore be able to get rid of that desktop app. And again, not get rid of as in have no replacement. The replacement would be the Shift CLI. So anyway, these exist now, again, pretty basic, and over the series of kind of these streams over the month that I'm going to be doing, we'll continue to kind of start adding more and more things here. So if your brain's going with automation that you want to see, throw it in the comments, hit me on Twitter, whatever. We'll start building it. So today is more about the refactoring. And a couple bits of refactoring that I want to do are going to be, first of all, this dirty option is not supported. This is something I added to Pint, again, a while back. I felt like this Shift CLI tool should have it as well. And then ultimately, I also need to support something along the lines of like paths or path star. And this would be like the paths to run, you know, automated, or the paths to change or something like that, or to automate, something like that. I don't know. So these last two are not supported. So before I kind of get into that, I want to do a bit of quote unquote refactoring. And I'm quoting refactoring because there are no tests for this. So again, that's something else in a future stream that I probably want to add to this application, or some tests. But for now, I think let's refactor kind of the way that these current tasks find files, and then we can, you know, kind of tack on this dirty and path bit. So let's go down and take a look at one of these tasks. For now, we can just do something maybe like this check lint, I suppose. And what you'll see a lot of these having is this find files. And I think if we go look at all the different places that it finds files, they're all going to have this particular method, which I think is, you know, something that can be refactored. So I think quickly what I would like to do is probably do something like a use, you know, finds files or something like that, right? And so this would just be a trait. So let's kind of build that up. Again, I'm just kind of going to program on the fly here. So let's make a new PHP class, or well, I guess it's not a class, it's a trait. So let's make just a new PHP file, and we'll say traits slash finds files, I think we said. Probably not the best name, but again, very easy to refactor this here in a minute. So we'll do namespace, app, or is it shift? I think it's shift traits, or is it shift CLI? No, it's just app tasks for now. So we'll say app. Oh yeah, because it's like a Laravel application. That makes more sense. And then we'll say trait finds files. And we'll probably want some kind of like private files array here. We'll just make this an empty array. And let's bring over this find files method. And we'll make it protected, I suppose. Probably ought to make the whole thing protected all the way down. I don't know what the common practice is for traits when, like, you wouldn't want them to be outside accessible, but you would want to allow the parent class to, like, potentially overwrite. Not too sure on that. But anyway, let's go find anywhere we do this finds files. So this should still work. It just goes into the trait now. Fine, all good. So not, again, not a huge refactor, and it actually allows us to get rid of that. So I'm just going to look anywhere in the code base that does find files, and this should be all of the tasks would be my guess. So if we go look at order model, again, we can kind of bring up, so let's open this in the find window, and let's bring in, why is my find files not imported? It should be. Did I call it tasks and not traits? Oh, duh, traits. That's why. There we go. All right, let's bring this in. That's better. All right, so let's just go through these now. So checklint already has it. Debug calls doesn't, so we'll replace this with that. And we'll say use finds. Wow, I cannot type today. All right, finds files, and let's just go make sure that this is the same. It looks the same to me. All right. And same thing here. Oh, wait. Oh, no, sorry. I didn't click into it. Okay, this one's a little bit different. It finds files underneath app models. So it's very specific in the files in which that it finds. So I think there might need to be some configuration, maybe, possibly, for this trait. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. And let's drop in the new trait and use finds files. All right. So I think as far as the refactor goes, these have all been updated. But the catch now is order model maybe potentially needs to have some kind of like base path that it does. So let's take a peek at this. So finds files just does current directory. And what we could do, get current working directory. Is that accurate? Yeah, I think that's probably accurate. So what we could do here is something like dot, and then we could say like this base path, you know. And if that method is defined, then it should return, you know, app models in the case of the order model bit. Or should it just have like its whole thing of like search path, you know, to search where to search the files for? It probably makes the most sense to just do the whole thing, because then it's super configurable. But I guess I wouldn't want people to have to like, I guess the nice thing about base path is you don't have to kind of worry about that get current working directory, you know, bit. So maybe it's not base path, it's like subpath or something. I'm trying to think of the right name there. I'm struggling with that today. I haven't coded that much for the last few days. Look what happens. When using get current working directory, wouldn't you have a problem you had with pint dirty the other day? The other day. Like 6 months ago the other day? I don't remember. Yeah. I know kind of roughly what you're talking about, but I'm not there yet. My mind's not there yet. Okay, again, we can change names later. Let's not get bogged down. Let's call this subpath, and we'll just say protected. Protected function subpath. This is going to basically return a string. And by default, it's going to return nothing, I would think. Now the question is, do I do something fancy here where like I R trim it or L trim it of the directory separators, or do we just kind of go with it? I mean, that can just be documented, to be honest. I think if subpath exists, we would probably want to add a directory separator. Yeah, this is a bit weird. I think what you would probably want to do is say if subpath, yeah, that's gross. I think we just do directory separator here and then dot subpath. This is where tests are handy. What I'm trying to do is make sure, kind of like Laravel does, I want to make sure that anytime you get a path, it never has the trailing directory separator. So I think what I can do here is something a little bit gross, and again, I could always refactor this, but we would do like directory separator there. And so that way, if this is blank, then this will get trimmed off. And if for some reason in their subpath they have left a directory separator, then it would get chopped off. The only annoyance would be is if subpath had a directory separator kind of built into it. But I think I would just, again, as part of the documentation, say that if you override this method, it should return without the prefixing directory separator. Okay, and so what we would do in order model in that case is kind of down here, we would say protected function subpath, and we're going to return app models. So that's the way that this, I think, would work. So we've basically refactored the find files that's in kind of all those tasks to be in one location, which is nice. This may still need some work, but it's in one location, and we've allowed it a little bit of flexibility in the sense that instead of searching your entire project, the current working directory that is, you can give it a subpath that'll kind of get put together, right? All right, so I'm here in the chat. Let's see what you all are saying, and then we'll kind of move on. rtrim. Oh yes, sorry, rtrim. I was thinking about L trimming the subpath, but yes, you're right, rtrim. Good call. Okay, yeah, all right, cool. So now we need to support a couple things. Let's go back. All these should still work. Again, we're going to run them here in a minute, so I'm not worried about kind of testing that at the moment. I think what I want to do is go back to our run command. What we would want to do, I think let's start with path, and it would be nice. I'm wondering if Laravel has can you say dash dash to automatically get the separation? I always kind of forget if they allow you to do that. It's really Symfony that does it. Let's do this. Symfony command console dash dash separator. I'm just curious if they have like an automatic dash dash separator in here. Is there like a separator? No, I guess not. Well, we'll just see if there is one when we kind of go for it here in a little bit. Okay, I'll leave path off, and I think what we would want to do, what I want to do is basically say that if you send it path, right? If path is set, then somehow we need to make sure that kind of find files gets injected with that, or becomes aware of it in some capacity, right? And that's kind of where this files, that's what I was thinking about with this files. It's not currently used, but that's kind of what I was getting at, is this protected array. So I'm thinking here, how do we get from the command level to kind of this new task registry? I guess we could pass it. Let's see here. This task registry just returns the tasks in the manifest. So it's just a class reference. And we could kind of dereference that class. So if we go back to our run command, we could say something like new task registry, and then can you instantiate a class like that? Like we could say something like this, arguments path, or sorry, argument path, right? And then the default maybe is just an empty array. Or does that not allow you to do defaults? That's strange. I thought you could do default. Is it get argument? I don't know. We'll see. Can you dereference a string class like that and pass it arguments, or do you have to use like reflection to do that? I haven't done something so dynamic in a while. PHP create class from string with arguments. Hey, there you go. Tell me about it, Stack Overflow. Remind me the ways. Yeah, see, do you have to use reflection? Ugh, gross. Come on, there's got to be a better way. Is it always reflection? Call user array? That's old school. Does it still work? Just go away, cookie thing. God. Yeah. We could do like a set thing too, which is a little bit weird. The other alternative, I think the other path, which maybe is not so dynamic, is like we could inject it with like a setting of the files. That might be a little more appropriate because not every task does find files currently or forever. So we probably don't want to do this, to be honest. I think what probably makes more sense is to determine, excuse me, determine and if it responds to the ability to kind of find or set those files. I think that's probably the way to go. So what probably makes more sense is instead of trying to do all this in one shot, we would just new up the task and then from there determine like what kind of traits that thing has and then set those types of things. That would probably be the way to go, I think. Because then we could do something down here like protected bool dirty, equals false. We could do something along those lines. I think that would be the way to go. Where's files used? Don't know. All right. Yeah, let's do that. So let's get rid of this craziness. And I guess I got an extra one there. And let's kind of steal this part off. And what we'll do is maybe something like class. Can't say class. Task class. I don't really know. Well, let's just say this. We'll just say this. Create task. And then we would pass it this. Well, we don't really need to pass it anything at all. It has access to that. So let's turn this off and do a private. And for now, we need to send it that task. Do we want to send it that task or do we just want to say this task registry? We'll say name. Let's pass it a string name. And this is going to return, basically returns an object. Can you say that? Yeah, I think you can say that. All right, so we'll pass this the task registry, which returns a string. And then we're going to create that into an object. So what we would do is we'll say task equals new name. We don't need to do that anymore. And then now we could say something like if, isn't there like a uses or like uses trait or trait? Yeah, trait uses recursive. Wow. How deep is that? Yeah, that's fine. And we'll say finds files. So if you use that trait, then we're going to call task set files, you know, to this argument path. And then task set dirty. You would never use dirty and the other one the same, but whatever. We'll just say this argument or option. And then dirty. Okay. And I guess these have default values? I guess it defaults to false or null. I don't know if I really like that. I think I would want to say like false here. We'd have to find out kind of how that works. And then ultimately we would return task, right? We could probably use like a fancy tap thing here, but that's okay. So set files is the argument path. But if it's null, is it always going to set it? Yeah, see, that's why I'm not a big fan of this. I think I would probably say something like if this has argument path, then we would set it. I think that's probably more appropriate. And then if this has option, I don't think these work the way I want. I vaguely remember these like not working. I think you would just know here to set it to true, basically. Yeah. I don't know if I like the names set, but let's go add these for now. And what we would want is probably, this would have to be public, I guess. Public set files. What in the fuck? There we go. Oh, public function set files. Sorry. Where'd my autocomplete go? This does nothing. So void, and then I guess you could use that new like never. That's weird. Void, and then we'll just say this files equals files. Got to actually pass those in. So this should be an array of files. There you go. And then we'll do the same thing for dirty. I don't like the set, but again, we'll refactor all this later. And yeah, again, it's kind of silly. Set dirty, you would just like enable dirty. You know, it would just be like find dirty. I don't know, whatever. Set dirty. We'll do it for now. But it's always going to be true, which is kind of stupid. Yeah, set it to true. Fair enough. So dirty, this will be a bool, dirty, and then dirty, 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 dirty. Okay, there you go, they're set. And I think now what we would want to do is we would want to update this. All right, we could basically say if not empty files, then we would just straight return the files. Whoops. This files. I think we would just straight return files. All right. And then next would be if dirty, right? So if this dirty, then we would need to return this find dirty files. And again, we might separate the concerns here at a different point in time. Why doesn't it add the method? Just add it. Okay, so protected function find dirty files. This protected. One day I'll be able to type. This will return an array. And now is where we can probably go steal from what I did with Pint. Yeah, I think we could do that. Let's go do that. Laravel Pint. There you are. All right, so yeah, here we go. Adds dirty option. Let's go take a peek at this. All right, I think it's just kind of, I'm really just after the command that I ran. So we don't need all this crazy stuff. What we would need is kind of that ACR command that I was after. Well, you know what? I think we fixed this. Yeah, there we go. Get process. Okay, cool. So tap new process, blah, 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 blah. Split it all up, get the path name, and return it. But this factors in like what Pint does and doesn't do. So I don't think we need to kind of mess with this bottom piece, but we will need to mess with this top piece. So let's go back to ours. Pop this in here. Let's get our process. Ooh, we're running Laravel 10 now. That's another nice refactor. So we could use their new process thing, but again, we'll come back to that. Okay, so we get status short, find all PHP files. If the process is not successful, then we're gonna abort and tell them, hey, the dirty option's only available when using Git. And then otherwise, we can probably just straight return this dirty files. So we're going to say collect, split them by line breaks with no empty matches. Take the substring of the status bit and then reject that anywhere it's a D. And then if the status is R, this is kind of messing with the format. Since I'm the one that wrote this, I kind of know what this is saying. But basically, we want to exclude any deleted files. So that's kind of this reject here. And this mapping is really just making it a file and then status kind of registry. So it's a little bit easier to work with. And then finally, map is saying that if your R, your status is R, meaning the rename, then we have to take the right side of what's on the arrow. So we basically take after what Git says you renamed it to, because again, the old file name would not be available. And then finally, we map all of those into the current path of the project, the directory separator, and then the file name that Git told us. So this is kind of maybe what you might have been mentioning, Samuel, about the path. We ultimately map this down to relative path. So I think I could probably short circuit this for now. I'm not saying this is going to work forever, but I think we could probably just map this down, which is really doing nothing now. So we could probably get rid of that, and we just get the values and then all. So that's going to effectively return, does values return a new collection or just an array? No, it returns a new collection. And then we get all to make it an array. All right, cool. And we don't need to compare against what was excluded by Pint in its configuration file, because we just don't really have one yet. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the dirty files. So yeah, basically, if files have been set, then you pass them in on the path and they kind of override everything, dirty, anything else. It would never make sense to use both those options at the same time, but the point is that if you tell us some paths, those are the files that you're gonna scan for your project. If you told us dirty, then it's going to find the dirty files based on what your git status tells us are the dirty files. And then the default behavior being to just look for all PHP files in basically your project, the current working directory, where you're running this shift command. So that's the way it should work. I think those are the refactors I wanted to make today. Let's see if it, since we don't have a test suite, let's see if it works. So let me, I'm a little scared. Where do I run this? I mean, I guess it's all backed by Git, so who cares? To that point, let's go ahead and add these things in the off chance that I kind of break everything. So let's do a, okay, so app commands, finds traits. Okay, so we're adding, there's kind of a mix and match here. We're adding a lot of stuff here. So we'll just say yes. We're adding the ability to send it multiple paths, right? That should probably change the paths to change, or the paths to scan. I'm not sure. Again, I can tweak the wording later. Okay, so we changed the registry to be create task now, and we effectively just call perform on that the way we were before. But this allows us to do a little bit of inspection of that task and to say, hey, does it have some kind of traits? I kind of took the time to do it this way because ultimately I would like people to be able to create their own tasks and do it. So if the Shift CLI tool has a certain number of traits, then it can continue to use this type of approach to send it arguments. You don't have to like somehow reach out to like this global place. And again, this may change over time, but I think this is kind of the quick way to do it. This is very similar to how Laravel does things in its testing layer. It kind of sees, does your test case use refresh database? And if it does, then it kind of does some additional steps. So we're basically doing the same thing here. That's kind of where, in the back of my mind, the idea came from. Okay, so now all of the tasks should effectively say find files, and the find files method should be removed. And we should see that these are all the same except for that models bit. So there we go. And again, that's the same. There we go. We're adding it for that. And the only difference here is this additional path. Notice that prefixed slash there. So now that is handled in our find files because instead we're saying app models. The nice thing about this is it actually would allow you to change this. You know, you could override this method if you extended this class and updated it in the registry. So like if your models are somewhere else, you can either pass it the paths as an option. That would be the easiest thing to do. But if you just always in every project had your app models in some other place, like app domain or entities or whatever weird stuff you want to do, you could extend this and map it. Maybe there'll be a configuration file someday, we'll see. Git app traits. Okay, so there's everything. Let's do a git commit -m, and we'll say refactor finding files based on arguments, based on run arguments. All right, good enough for me. And again, just in case I break everything by running this, I'm gonna go ahead and push this up live. Okay, so if we go to a project like Laravel Shift, let's just pull down everything for giggles. Okay, never mind, just kidding. Git reset --hard, origin master. There we go. Okay, so laravelshift.com, entire Laravel project here. Let's just try to start running some of these commands and see what happens. So I should be able to say Shift CLI, Shift, and again, this is kind of how right now I'm getting around that current working directory. That's something that I can make a cleaner option in the future. But for now, we'll run it, you know, relative to where it lives. But that way, I'm in my project directory. So, what did we say in our run command? I kind of forgot. You just pass it any number of tasks and a dirty option. See, this is weird. How does it know which ones are tasks and which ones are paths? I think it's kind of like a var It's kind of like a debug calls, I think was one of them. So let's just go through these one by one. If we go into the task registry and we go into the list of tasks, we can get down here to the default tasks, and debug calls is one of them. So what this would do is scan your project for any kind of debug calls in your code. The problem is, it's not a big deal if I wanted to say dirty, right? Because it's an option. But what if I now want to say something like scan my app code? I don't think this command's going to know the difference between debug calls being a task and app being a path. I think there's going to need to be a way to separate that. So if we run this, I would expect it to probably explode. Cannot add a required argument path after an array argument. Okay, so first of all, path is not required. So I think you'd have to say something like this. Cannot add, is that right? Do you say this or this? I don't know. We're going to find out. Let's go look at the docs, shall we? So let's do, or well, let's go to Symfony because it's all built on Symfony. Let's see if we can figure this out real quick, and then I'll probably need to end the stream. Console commands, let's say optional. I think Laravel's the one that kind of gives you, yeah, I think Laravel's the one that actually gives you the magic. Let's say console command. All right, optional, there we go. You can make arguments optional or define default values for arguments. Options like, all right. I wonder if you can like specify input arrays when calling this. Okay, so there it is. Can be combined with optional. I thought I just wrote that. Maybe I didn't. Cannot add a required argument path after an optional argument task. I just changed it to be optional. Why don't you like me? Cannot add a required argument path after an optional. Maybe it's just because, maybe it knows. No. Can you like separate these? Nope. What does it say if I run help? Okay, it just hates this. All right. Am I not following user question mark star? The star character can be combined with the optional argument definition to allow 0 more instances of an argument. Okay, my guess is that it just doesn't like that. Okay. Arguments. List command. Oh, I know what it's. I think I have to say run. I think I was running the wrong task the whole time. That would explain it. Let's try this again. Nope. The default, sorry, run is the default task. I think Laravel 0 allows you to specify what the default task is for your project, and so that's run in this case. Okay, so run options dash dash task. I think the issue here is that there's my dash dash. Here's my guess. I think this is kind of a weird, I think this is somewhat of a weird error message, but my guess is you can't have multiple array arguments. I think that's a restriction, which makes sense in my head because how would you differentiate where one argument stopped and the next one started? Yeah. So I think what's going to have to happen is I'm probably going to need to make path an option, because yeah, see, here's my automatic dash dash. That's what I was trying to do. I was trying to make tasks be the optional, like this array thing, and then you could separate it with a dash dash, but that's all kind of built in. So I think what needs to happen is you have to say paths, and then we could say the paths to change, and this becomes like equal star, I think. Options array, yeah, there you go. When defining an option that expects multiple input values, each, see, that's ugly. Ugh, so ugly. What I would like is you could, trying to think of a better way to do that. I don't want you to have to say like path equals every single time. Da 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 da. That's kind of annoying. Wondering if there's another way to kind of make this prettier. I don't think there's going to be arguments. There should be something in like the docs that say you can't have multiple, never-ending arguments, right? Okay, so I'm just trying to feel out how this would look. So yeah, let's say dash dash help. The path to change. The paths to change. Multiple values allowed. So the paths to automate, I don't really know. I'm still playing with that. Here's my issue. The whole goal of this is to be able to say something like shift, and then you say like, debug calls, and you can say something like lint code and, format, code or something, right? The goal is you would just be able to pass this all the different tasks that you would want to run. That's why that's optional. And then this dirty bit is nice. But now what's a little bit annoying is I was really hoping I could do something like this and then say like app models, right? But of course, potentially multiple paths. So, you got your app domain or whatever else we talked about before. That's the syntax I was hoping I could do. I get why you can't do that because it doesn't really know because of this optional argument. So now the battle is with path, now I say app models, and then you got to keep saying all the different paths. It's just kind of, it's not super awesome, I guess is my point. So I guess I'm trying to determine what's the lesser evil. Does path become the one that you can send multiple things to, and then you have to say which tasks you want to run? Like, are you going to be running multiple tasks all the time, or are you ever just going to be running one? I think it probably makes sense to leave path being, I think your standard use case is probably going to be something like this, where you run multiple things against shift at a time. So let's fix this to do path, and we'll just say something like the paths to scan. And let's get down here, and we'll have to change this to has option, and then we would say option path. Now, does that automatically give you an array? I'm a little bit curious what this gives you. So let's just DD this for now. All right, so let's do, just before I get off the stream here, let's do this with debug calls, and then we'll say dash dash path app models. Let's see what this outputs. Nothing. Did it run anything or did it explode? Has option path. Did I call it the right thing? Yeah, I did call it path. Paths to scan. Oh, I think I have to say equals. Sorry. Nope, don't have to say equals. That's not what the issue is. So this is just running no matter what. Where is my path? I think this is where I have a bad understanding of how these work. I don't think has option actually looks. I don't think it looks at it the way you think. Let's just do this. Let's do dd this options. Let's just get them all and kind of see what they look like. So let's go back up to this. Okay, dirty's false, path is an array. Good. That's kind of what I wanted to check. So now I can say something like path equals database, you know, factories or something. And then we're going to get 2 of them. Good. Okay, so that answers my question on that. Why am I not getting in here is now kind of the next question. Oh. Trait uses recursively. I'm not passing in the right trait. Class uses trait, traits, returns all trait used by a trait and its traits. I think I'm doing that the wrong way. I think you have to say class uses recursively. Yeah. This returns all traits used by a class. Yeah, there we go. Now we have to say task. That's why we're not getting in here. This is why you test. Okay. And we would have to say in array if that was in that array, I think is what you have to do. Are these fully qualified classes? Array unique. Returns an array. Let's find out. Okay, there we go. DD. Awesome. Good. And if I pass it nothing, we get an empty array. So it's claiming that it has the option. So we don't want it to do that. That's a no-no. So that's kind of annoying because, in my opinion, has option. That's where it's kind of like, is the option set? That was my understanding. Returns true if an input argument exists by its name or position. Yeah, so see, that's wrong. Has option is not really like, you kind of have to say like option, not empty or some crap. Yeah, so here we can say if option dirty. Okay, yeah, see, dirty is false. That's gross. I wish you could say something like, you know, has value or something. That's weird. Uses option, past option, I don't really know. Anyway, so if option, then we would send it on, and then here we can say if option dirty, then set it to true. Okay, so if we run this again, we shouldn't get dirty option does not exist. So I guess has option behaves? No. Is it not called dirty? Should be called dirty. It's weird because this calls it dirty question mark. I guess an option is always optional. I don't think you have to say an option is optional. That's my problem. Let's do that. There we go. There we go. And just for giggles, let's say help here. So dirty. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to tweak the names for this a little bit, but this actually, I think this is actually working now. We just had I just had a lot of things that actually needed to be touched up. So dirty was kind of way off. I was wondering why that showed up as dirty question mark in the dump, but okay, so I think we're setting everything correctly and we're passing it down correctly. Now it would just be a matter of like running something that actually, you know, might lint or something like that. I'm trying to think. We could run the model order. That would be a good one. Let's do run, is it sort models or model order? I always forget. Order model, yeah. order model, and then I wonder if I should call it sort. There is no dirty, so I could say like dirty, and hopefully this does nothing. It doesn't do anything, but if I run this and leave it alone, it should scan all of my app models, and I know that they're not all in the right order, so let's see what happens. Hey, there we go. Failed to open string connection.php. App parsers finders class definition. Failed to open. Let's go into find files, and let's just dump, or well, we don't need to do it right here. We can go into order model and we'll dump it way up here. Maybe I'm stripping something off that I shouldn't be. So let's do a dump on files, see what it finds. Okay, yeah, that's interesting. It's pulling off the relative file name. Oh, I've been going an hour now. Gonna have to stop. I think the relative path name is wrong if you get in here. This is probably not, that's probably not what I want to do, that relative path name. I probably need to, like, instead of saying relative path name, I probably need to drop that or cut that current working directory off of it. Or just let it use the full absolute name. Yeah, so that's wrong. That's something else to fix. Okay, well, I think I'm going to cut it there. There's definitely some things I want to patch up here. Again, this is not ready for kind of wide use yet, which is why I wanted to give it a look. These tasks were kind of built for that series, but I didn't use the find or anything. I was always passing in stuff from the project, so that's why some of these bugs are kind of rearing their head here. But I think if we say like get absolute, I think it's get absolute path name, I think. So get absolute path name, I think. Let's find out. Nope, that's the wrong name as well. Yeah, I think I'll have to figure out like what's the right thing to pull off that file object there. I think it gives you like an SPL file object, I'm not sure. So yeah, I'll dig around the documentation, get that cleaned up, and push these patches, which should get this back into a working state. But as I mentioned just a minute ago, it seems like this probably was never pulling those files correctly. So anyway, yeah, I'll tweak this up, push it up, and again, hopefully some of these things can run based on these options that we refactored. I think next week we'll probably focus on adding some tests because, yeah, we ran into a lot of bugs today. So anyway, thank you all for joining live. See you next week.